Hi, I'm Don Cleveland. I'm the author of Revitalizing America, a Declaration Against Our Government. And today I want to talk about big promises. Who makes us a promise in our lives? Basically, we allow someone or something in who or in which we need to place a great deal of trust and faith to make a promise to us. We need to place that faith in this person or entity because, in many cases, our lives and our dreams depend upon it. When you marry, you allow your partner to promise you that they will be faithful to you for the rest of your life. If we didn't allow another party to make a promise to us, that promise would be valueless. Most of the time, we have a choice of allowing promises to be made to us, but what would happen if we didn't have that choice? Well, when we're born into the United States or any other country, our government pushes promises upon us which we must perform, and we can't escape them. We've promised to pay taxes, be licensed to drive a car, buy insurance to drive a car, register for the draft. If we work or live, we may not be on the streets, or we will. We promise not to be negligent, not to leave the country without a passport, to go through airport security, and on and on and on. But what's the opposite of that? What's the counterpart? What does the government promise to us? Well, really, we have to look back in our history and say that the first major promise made to us Americans was made in the Declaration of Independence. And it's a promise upon which we really stake our lives and our well-being. So how and when did the Declaration of Independence come into existence? Is it like many believe that the colonies just got tired of taxation without representation and wrote the Declaration of Independence and went into the Revolutionary War in 1776? Well, it really didn't go down that way. Depending upon the sources, there were 31 battles, skirmishes, or raids conducted by the Patriots or the British forces starting in September of 1774 and running through June of 1776 before the Declaration of Independence was adopted. These battles included Lexington and Concord and Bunker Hill. It's also important to note that a large number of colonists did not favor revolting against the king. During the American Revolution, the colonies were a house divided, and choosing sides wasn't easy. It's estimated that 500,000, or about 30% of the colonists, were Tories. They stayed faithful to the crown. For years, it was widely believed that 1/3 favored the revolution, 1/3 opposed it, and 1/3 was undecided. This stems from an estimate made by John Adams in his personal writings in 1815, but it's impossible to know the exact number of colonists who were for or against the revolution. But with 1/3 for and 1/3 against and 1/3 neutral, the movement was in danger. It needed a PR miracle. That miracle was needed in the summer of 1776 because George Washington and the Continental Congress found out that on June the 11th, 1776, the largest invasion fleet ever to attack the colonies was launched from Nova Scotia and was headed toward New York. The British invasion forces were expected to arrive in late July or August of 1776, and the Battle of Long Island took place in August 27th, 1776. So was it coincidental that the committee that wrote the Declaration was given the job to write the Declaration on the same day that George Washington and the Continental Congress found out that the British invasion fleet was sailing for the U.S.? The revolution needed more believers, more followers, and lots more support to defend against the British. The revolution needed a Madison Avenue halo just like the one developed for World War I. A propaganda effort to rally around the flag and the revolution. In fact, when time is taken to read the Declaration, the reasons for its timing and its issuance become highly visible. So let's take a look at it. First, we had a grand promise made to us, again promises. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, and that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The people have the right to institute a new government, laying its foundations on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. So these are the headliners. the breaking news, the hook to draw support. Who doesn't want unalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? So the call went out in handbill form to taverns, town criers, newspapers, and the militias. Yes, join us, and you can have these unalienable rights. All these promises after it was known that the largest British invasion fleet was on its way. Not only did the authors promise what really feels like a democracy with equality, liberty, and happiness, but they also listed a series of over 20 specific reasons for breaking with the king's government. One of the reasons, very specifically stated, was the following. He, the king, is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, destruction, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. Then, at the very end of the declaration, there's an oath applied which binds its believers to service of the declaration's goals. The oath reads, "And for the support of this declaration, and with firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." So we have promises of democracy made in the face of pending doom and collapse of the revolution, with an oath of allegiance sworn in blood and treasure at the end. Well, as long as we've talked about the other complaints against the king, let's take a look at them. Number one, he has refused his assent to laws most wholesome and necessary for the public good. Number two, he, the king, has forbidden his governors, that is the governors of the colonies, to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance unless suspended in their operation till his assent could be obtained. And when so suspended, he utterly neglected to attend to them. So in other words, the colonists would pass a law, it needed his approval, he just let it sit, he wouldn't even implement it. Three, he's refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people unless those people would relinquish the right to representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. 4, he has called together legislative bodies at places unusual and uncomfortable and distant from the depositories of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them, that is the delegates, into compliance with his measures. 5, he has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. 6, he has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to dangers of invasion from without and convulsions from within. 7, he has endeavored to prevent population of these states, for that purpose obstructing laws for naturalization of foreigners, and refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of land. That is, he might take away the land from the colonies that he'd given to them. 8, he has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. No courts could exist without his favor in the United States. He's made judges dependent upon his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount of payments of their salaries. Number 10, he has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. 11, he has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. 12, he has affected to render the military independent of and superior to civilian power. 13, he has combined with others to subject us to jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. 14, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. 15, for protecting them, that is, the troops stationed in our midst, by a mock trial from punishment from any murders which they should commit upon our inhabitants in these states, like the Boston Massacre. 16, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world. 17, for imposing taxes on us without our consent. 18, for depriving us, in many cases, of the benefits of a trial by jury. 19, for transporting us beyond the seas to be tried on pretended offenses. 20, for abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, Canada, establishing therein an arbitrary government and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule in these colonies. 21, for taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws and altering fundamentally the forms of our government. 22, for suspending our legislatures and declaring themselves, that is, the king's men, invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. 23, he has abdicated government here by declaring war on us out of his protection and waging war against us. 24, he has plundered our seas, ravaged our coastlines, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. 25, he, at this time, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, destruction, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty, perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous of ages and totally unworthy of a head of a civilized nation. 26, he has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands. 27, he has excited domestic insurrection amongst us and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. So why spend the time reading the entire Declaration of Independence? First, most Americans haven't read it. Second, the long list of grievances needed to be heard and understood because they have a strong influence on our existence today, our constitutional development, and how we feel, even today. Third, the list of complaints evokes resentment and anger against an oppressor. So the Declaration's complaints can be put into the following general terms in modern terminology. There were smothering attempts to let the colonies govern themselves. The king kept canceling the promises of self-governance that he'd made by giving the colonists charters of their own. There was a lack of justice. There was a ruthless or unjustified use of force. There was unfair imposition of taxes. There was interference with the business of the people, and he made war upon the people. So it's necessary to ask how many people in the U.S. have similar complaints today? If not complaints, then strong feelings about issues that are similar to this. We need to ask the question, if our government sometimes acts like a king, a sovereign, why does our government have sovereign immunity? Does the average person in our society have a chance to get true justice? How many of you seeing this video can afford an attorney to defend yourself? Does it feel like our government oversteps its lawful boundaries to interfere with our lives and our businesses? Are many of us paying more taxes than we should because others aren't paying their taxes? And has our government started wars, or have we been sent to war without a declaration of war from Congress and without true justification? Now, to sort of round out the story related to the Declaration's origins, the Battle of Long Island was a disaster. The Continental Army and its militias were badly defeated in that battle. Had they not been able to bring together ferrying boats during the night of the battle to escape across the East River into New York, Washington's forces could have been captured and the revolution lost on August 28, 1776. Why don't you check out the stories about the boatmen who aided the revolutionary forces several times during the Revolutionary War, including the crossing of the Delaware. And for more information on the promises made and broken, you can visit my website at revitalizeamericanow.org, or better yet, you can buy a copy of the book on Revitalizing America from either my website or from Amazon.com. We'll speak again. Thank you.